It reminds me so much of you know what Jim Jones is?
No.
You don't remember that like decades ago there was a group of people in the United States that went to Guyana and created their own little town, and then there was a
No, I didn't.
mass Kool-Aid cyanide drinking.
What?
You don't know this?
Kool-Aid cyanide drinking.
Yeah,
As in people were killing
mass
themselves?
suicide. Yes.
What? I had no. What?
Not recently. This was like decades ago.
Dude, where have I been? I've been under a rock again. I don't know. I've never heard of this in my life.
Should we talk about it or like brief history lesson?
Talk about it.
Okay, so basically there was this guy, Jim Jones, and he was part of like the Evangelion Church, I believe. He was like a choir singer and he was like kind of like that, right?
Uh
And
huh.
then he created like his own church. And he started doing you know how like in the South like there's very like with choirs and mass like singing and a lot of liveliness in those churches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he created one of those, right? And he eventually started getting a following because he was a very charismatic person, and he was quote unquote performing miracles. So
Really?
like he would get like an old person, right?
Uh huh.
And the old person, or not, I don't even remember if it was an old person or someone dressed up as an old person. So the old person would act very decrepit and like move very slowly and say they have pains.
Right, right.
And then Mr. Jones would like do his magic and be like, "You are now healed." And then the person would start like dancing and moving around like crazily,
Uh huh.
which proves that he has magic powers clearly.
No, no, he's not magic. He's just performing miracles,
Yeah, he's
Alex.
performing a miracle. He cured age and arthritis
Yeah.
through the power of, I don't know, his powers.
Existence, yeah. Go on.
And he amassed a following. He became almost a he became a bit of a celebrity in America.
Wow.
And basically, at some point, he decided to move to Guyana with all of his followers and create a little
So,
town.
how many people went
A
with him?
thousand,
A
roughly.
thousand people
Yeah,
went with him to Guyana.
yeah. And
How have I never heard about this?
so they went more like 930. All right, but
Okay,
okay,
dude, same
a
thing.
thousand is a thousand. All right. And they went and they built a city and not city. They built a little town. They had like it was in a Guyana is a very forested
Yeah, yeah,
area, so
yeah.
they really like had to cut down the trees and establish stuff. But they created a town, like they did it. And eventually, what ended up happening is Mr. Jones started telling lies because they were excluded from the outside world. They didn't have any access to the media.
Oh,
This was before smartphone technology.
yeah, yeah.
So basically, he would have a megaphone right over the
Oh
entire
boy.
town, like a military camp. And he would basically say, it's like the American government is trying to take over, they're trying to invade us. Like a North Korean style of propaganda. He's basically telling everyone it's like
Or just propaganda in general.
yeah,
Like
but
very
like just like how
isolated propaganda, yeah.
yeah, and over time, people started not liking living there, as you do as a rational person.
Wow.
So he started all of his higher ups because there was like a hierarchy system with
Of
him at the
course.
top,
Of
and all of
course.
his like second in commands. He gave them all guns.
Oh my gosh.
So now you have to do what he says, and you're not allowed to leave. If you try to leave, they'll try to shoot you.
Wow.
And eventually this went on for a long time, and at some point they Mr. Jones, or a reporter, he said, "Can I come to visit? Can I visit the town?" Right?
Yeah.
And he visited the town, and everyone in the town was forced against their will to be smiling,
Wow.
and they and clapping and dancing, and basically make it look like the utopian society everyone on the outside thought it was. And there was like someone wrote a note to the reporter, and he said something like, "Please help us," or "This is all a lie," or like something to the reporter,
Uh-huh.
very small but like subtle. And the reporter
Yeah.
kind of was like, "All right, all right." And I don't remember if they planned to like kill the reporter or if they just like freaked out, because if the world found out how horrible it really was, then people would actually come and like come after them.
Yeah.
So Mr. Jones came up with the brilliant idea of let's kill ourselves. And cyanide isn't very tasty.
No, I didn't
And
think it was either.
so, for those of you who don't know what cyanide is, it's basically like an extremely potent acid. I think it's basically, if you drink cyanide, you're burning your insides, so you're gonna die from the inside out.
It's beautiful.
And you end up foaming in the mouth, and
What a way to go,
it's
man.
extremely painful. And as far as technology is now, there is not really any surviving that. Once you drink some cyanide, you're pretty much
You're done,
you're
buddy.
done. You're done. So what he did to try and make people stomach it down was he was mixing cyanide with Kool-Aid.
Dude.
So
Oh my gosh.
so you were talking about the psychology of people. He managed to convince 900 people to kill themselves. And mind you, not everyone did it. Some people did escape. Funnily enough, his higher ups, who obviously in the documentary they feigned innocence. They feigned that they didn't do anything wrong. That they were were also forced against their will.
Oh my!
But
Well,
like,
what? That's a crazy thing too, though. How can they be forced again?
well, here's the thing. If there's like 5 lieutenants and you decide you're against it, what's stopping the other 4 from killing you?
Well,
So
what
that-
happens if you can get the other 4 to side with you, though?
That's the thing, right? When you live in this kind of society, if you speak against Jim Jones, they would report you. Like, no one could say anything bad about the society. No one can say anything bad about Jones. No one can say anything bad about the world they're living in. Because if they did, they would be reported, and the threat of being killed is very, very much alive. You're stuck in the middle of nowhere in South America in a forest, with people with guns who are ruling over you. What are you gonna do? It's like, yeah, fight the power, man. It's like, no, you're gonna sit there and be quiet and pray to God you can find a way out.
I mean, yeah, there is no fighting a totalitarian leader, unfortunately.
And you were talking about
man.
and you were talking about the psychology of the people, like.
Yeah, because I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but go on.
So no, like, this clearly shows like how people can really be manipulated into doing really crazy stuff. And by the time they sober up and realize that what they've done was a huge mistake, it's too late.
Dude, I mean, ideas are powerful. An idea doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Right or wrong.
Yeah, exactly. If you believe in it, it could be sharper than the sword. Like the pen is mightier than the sword.
It's true.
I mean, that's a analogy for education, but I mean, in this context, it kind of applies as well. Like, if you could rally 1,000 people behind an idea, and then also convince
the
80%
majority of them
to commit suicide. I mean,
he's not the only. There was like the mass suicide in California. Where
Dude,
the guy pretended to be like the second coming of Jesus or something.
dude, what? I haven't heard of any of these, man.
I might be getting that one wrong because I just briefly, I briefly heard about it in the past, but yeah, this happens, and I feel sad. Like,
Wow.
I don't understand cult mentality. Well, I kind of do. If you are down in your luck, and you're miserable, and you don't have any worth living, per se, like, let's say you struggle to wake up in the morning and be productive with anything, and then all of a sudden you have quote unquote a savior or a mission, like a life goal that's been handed to you by quote unquote just people, people who believe in justice and fairness,
Yeah.
self-proclaimed, mind you.
Yeah.
You might be hypnotized into believing them, and then you join them, and then you fight alongside them.
I'm still wrestling with this idea, like, in my head right now. Just this whole, what was his name? Jim
Jones.
Jim Jones taking 1,000 people to Guyana.
Mind you, this wasn't like within a few months. This happened like after years of like doing this stuff. I believe Jonestown, which is the name of the thing.
Of course, it was called Jonestown.
The thing. I believe it lasted only like less than a year. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not sure about that, but
It's not surprising.
but the build like this happened over the course of many years to build up that following, you know.
Yeah.
So it's not like he came out of nowhere,
No,
recruited
of course
people, and then brought them to Guyana. He really established himself as like a profound leader. That's charisma is dangerous.
Well, I suppose if you are a person that possesses charisma, and
That's
you,
power.
and you,
That's power.
Yeah, and like if you have some pretty bad views or some pretty anti-social, as in anti-society views, then I mean, you could lead a lot of people down the wrong rabbit hole.
Yeah. Aren't most sociopaths like very charismatic, or is it psychopaths? I think it's sociopath, but
No, a sociopath is someone that doesn't feel emotion.
oh, so then probably a psychopath.
It might be
someone who has
yes.
Because like there are a lot of horrible people that convince innocent people to do bad stuff, but usually they come across when you first see them as very charming.
Yeah, like side note, you remember the movie Psycho?
Psycho.
It was the most famous horror movie. It was I think 1950s or 1960s.
I know of it.
It was just the Norman Yates. I forget. Norman Bates. Yeah. He was super charismatic as a person, but then you realize like throughout the end of the movie that he's quote unquote a psycho.
Yeah.
So, damn.
But I know the pen is mightier than the sword, and I know ideas are extremely powerful, but like, why can't questions be even more powerful?
They are.
No one seems to pick up that weapon.
Well, I feel like the people who use it as a weapon just fall into the same category in the end as people who are just embracing an idea without questioning it.
No, because the difference
because a question I feel should not be used as a weapon. It should just be used as a way for enlightenment.
Not a weapon, but like if someone tells you something, you wouldn't believe them right away, or at least you shouldn't, because
I mean, I definitely wouldn't.
Like, it's literally one of the first thing you teach children is don't talk to strangers. If and I know we're adults, so we're quote unquote more responsible than children,
quote unquote.
But like, if a guy or a girl on the street starts preaching to you about something you know nothing about, would you listen?
The sky is actually green, kids.
It's like, would you listen to them? And if so, why? Why would you listen to them? Like, if I went on the street and said, "Hey, give me a loan of $1 million," you probably wouldn't give it to me. And there's a good reason for that. You don't know why I'm asking for it. You don't know what I'm gonna. I could be giving it to create a new school system to help all the people. But you don't know that.
Or I could be using it to buy a new Bugatti.
Buy a Tesla car.
Teslas are way cheaper, my friend.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay, that's not the subject of today.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, join our podcast, by the way.